as the world seemingly seems to move from one crisis to another, it's important for us to ask ourselves, where is humanity at? Where am I at? Where is the world at? What is the call of time for us at this moment? I'd like to share a few thoughts connected to my own personal experience of listening to the call of time. And I'd like to connect this also to what I feel is the call of time for humanity as a whole. When I was a teenager, I remember walking to school one day, and I was thinking about all of the crises that were taking place in the world at that time, in different parts of the world. And it seemed to me that the energies that people were using to try and deal with all the crises was in fact dealing with the symptoms rather than the real causes. And an image came to my mind, and I'd just like to share that image with you on the screen here. And here it is. I called it as the tree of calamities. And so as you can see, this is a large tree, an ugly tree, a tree in which you can make out some of the challenges that we face as a human race. And some of these I'll read out. There is, of course, environmental pollution, crisis in the economy. There are tensions connected to race, unemployment, wars, new wars starting up, terrorism, famine, so on and so forth. And I remember at that time hearing about various humanitarian organizations that were really doing their best to try to help people who are caught up in these various calamities. But at the same time, it seemed to me as though we were simply trying to cut down the branches of this tree. And of course, what happens is, after a while, that branch begins to grow again. So simply throwing aid or money at the symptoms does not create a solution. But when we look further down, when we look below the surface, we see the root causes of why this tree exists. Why do these problems exist in the world? And the answer to that is they are the result of human behavior. Human actions have created the state of the world, and the kind of actions which lead to these calamities are shown again here in this diagram as the roots of the tree. Actions, behaviors which are driven by anger or the desire for revenge, or by jealousy or selfishness, possessiveness, territorialism, jealousy, attachment, so on and so forth. When we behave driven by these energies, then our behavior becomes destructive and causes these calamities to arise and so much suffering to humanity, to animals, and to the planet too. And all of these energies, they all are rooted in this thing called ego. And so I feel, for me and for humanity in general, a big part of the call of time to listen to is, how can I overcome this thing called ego and return to true self-awareness and self-respect? I feel it's time to bring our inner, personal, emotional, and spiritual growth to the very top of our priority list. That is what seems to be missing in the world today. The discussion at the very highest levels: how can humans be better humans? how can we improve ourselves? And overcoming this energy of ego is a very big part of being able to emerge the best from within ourselves. Now, how do we do this? This starts by exploring the question that when we interact with each other, when you see another person, what is the first thing that you see? Do you see the race of the other individual, or perhaps the gender, the nationality, the religion, the culture? Or can you see beyond all of those labels and masks and see that behind all of that, there is a being, there is an energy, there is what we would define as the spirit or the soul. And this, I feel, is the beginning of the solution to everything. First of all, being rooted in true self-awareness of my true identity. And this then will enable me to look beyond my own prejudices, my biases, my conditioning of another person. I feel that every issue, every problem that there is in the world is essentially an identity problem. In different parts of the world, people identify themselves differently. In some parts, race is a big issue. In other parts of the world, religion, nationality, tribe, caste, and so on. And so it's extremely important to explore the question of identity. And that begins by asking myself, how do I see myself? How do I answer the question, who am I? And so I'd like to show you another slide at this point. And so what this image is telling us here, consider one person on the left here. And that individual is essentially the inner being, the spirit, or the word we've used here is the word soul. And what has happened to us over time is we have acquired many, many layers of ego masks. And all of these ego masks or temporary forms of identity are hiding the true me, the eternal me. And so mostly people identify with what they do or with what they have. And identifying with doing or having is what gives birth to ego. And where there is ego, as we mentioned, there will always be ego-based emotions. So the first thing to do is for me to step back from all of the ego masks I have been wearing and just to experience true identity. And that is, I am the spirit, I am the soul, I am a peaceful soul. And when I am rooted in this true eternal identity, it is only then that when I look at another person, my vision is able to cut through the ego masks of the other and see the other individual first as another soul, as another being. And this soul-to-soul vision then becomes a bridge over which a genuine acceptance, respect can travel. It connects us as human beings. And we're very much aware then that although our outer layers, our external identities may be different, but there is so much more that brings us together rather than separates us. This I would call as our first level of relationship. Our first level of relationship is our spiritual relationship, our soul-to-soul relationship. But today, that relationship has become suppressed. And pretty much all of us live within the second layer of relationship, which is where we relate to each other in terms of the ego masks, nationality, religion, culture, race, even family members. Before someone is your son or daughter, or husband or wife, or mother or father, before all of that, that other individual is another spiritual being, is a soul, is a living energy. The call of time is for us to resurrect that first level of relationship between us. And if we work on living in that relationship, the soul-to-soul relationship, then we find that the ego begins to dissolve and the best comes out of us in terms of acceptance, kindness, patience, tolerance, understanding, and so on. And if we had these things more in our lives, patience, tolerance, understanding, forgiveness, if we had them more active in our relationships, how much more peace would there be in our personal lives and also in the world in general? And so I feel that even at the very highest levels of leadership, this is the call of time. How can we come together as human beings? How can we go beyond ego-based behavior? How can we resurrect and re-experience our original connection with each other as human beings? I believe in the idea connection before solution. When we first connect as human beings, as spiritual beings, it is only then that we're able to find solutions to the differences that may exist between us. Thank you.